Hello and welcome to Is This England? A show where we talk about old England games and ask just how England was this.
We're entering year three of the Rous Cup, where England and Scotland are tied at one win apiece. But is this new love affair already fading? And is there a way to spice it up?
You may be a stranger, that's what time can do. Baby, you mean everything to me.
Oh, that's a kinky start, isn't it? Suggestive.
Well,
Oh,
this new love affair, it'd been on and off for years and years and years. Well, very much on, and then they were like, "We're taking this somewhere else,"
yeah.
and just a
I think
little
they call
bit.
it the 100-year itch.
Yeah, well, it's 102-year itch. I feel at this point now.
Yeah, they've sort of like divorced and then got back together and renewed the vows straight away. And
And
it's like,
everyone's just
whoa.
going, yeah, everyone's going, this is a bad idea. I'm not buying a suit for this, no chance.
Oh, God, you reminded me. I've got to buy a suit, actually. We haven't reminded me. I was just thinking about it before the podcast, but strange coincidence. Anyway, we do have an absolute ton to get into. We're talking Rose Cup. We're part three, the old sex era. Can you give us a bit of a rundown as to where we are? Where did we leave off last time?
Yeah, where are we in this mad Rouse extravaganza? So we've kind of covered the last two ones. The Rouse Cup, it was essentially just a way for England and Scotland to kick the shit out of each other because they didn't want to do it with Northern Ireland and Wales around anymore. So they invented this. Scotland won the first one. England won the second one, but at the time of England winning that second one, both teams had qualified to go to Mexico '86, which is kind of that's a big thing for both countries. I don't think both had done it for a little while at least.
No, well, I'm going to take your word for it. The race, I think it's just worth mentioning. The race cup was kind of like a one-off, wasn't it? It was a one game and you're done. It's straight to a final,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we've
It's like
seen.
the Charity Shield or something, isn't it? Or a Super Cup. It's just we're doing this a one-off game. It's supposed to be a friendly, but they've just given it a trophy, which I'm not against. I think since we've gone through this, I think it's a nice idea. But we're about to enter a strange place, strange, odd. Where they've got a bit of money around and they're splashing around and looking in the phone book for something interesting. So let's see where this
Yeah,
takes us.
yeah, something dildo adjacent.
I didn't want to say it, but you've done it. You've broken the glass.
So we're in 1986 now. England do have bigger thing, believe it or not, they do have bigger things to concern themselves with, which is the World Cup in Mexico. Oh God, that's took me back to the last episode where we were talking about all those pre-World Cup competitions in Mexico. This is such a there's so much admin on these on this Rose Cup deep dive. But speaking of deep dives, I mean the World Cup '86, we can't just gloss over it in part three of the Rose Cup Odyssey, can we?
Yeah, it's not it is a footnote to us in this, but we can't just say, "Oh, that happened and goodbye." And this it's a really important period for England and one that I think we're probably going to look into in its own period at some point. But right now is not the time for us to go really deep into it. So we'll just kind of look over quickly what England did because for a lot of people, this is like their golden period for England, and like to them, the last truly great World Cup and the best chance England had of winning it since 1966. However,
What about
every
Italia
gen
'90?
well, the thing is that every generation of England fan has this, and they think that this is them. So get over your nostalgia. We're just going to plow over it.
Do you think ours is nostalgia? Because we surely have the best claim of out of anyone, really, with the semi final and the final at
Yeah,
Wembley.
but Gaz's tears and all this kind of stuff and Italian 90 and the stories and all that stuff. And Euro 96 wasn't that great to be young and to have cocaine and these people they just there's all these things. Everyone's got their own idea of what it is. I mean, I would say this is the current England team we live in this dimension is the best England performing team since the one that won the World Cup or won anything. So,
Yeah,
but 86, this is England did an 86 special, didn't they?
Yeah, yeah, actually, it's a good point. Those
Which was
copycats.
which was the pun that I took with this name, and for our podcast, and thoroughly regretted it once we started doing it because it's so complicated and doesn't work as a word.
Yeah, it can sometimes be hard to do those intros as well, but we love it now. This is the one.
Yeah.
Is this the one? Anyway, so last time our World Cup '86 chat, we were talking a bit about qualifying, maybe, or just some friendlies, and the name Mark Hateley kept popping up. So is he the man? Is he the 1986 England poster boy going sort of as we approach the running path towards the tournament?
Yeah, kind of. He'd been the man in form for England. He'd done very well, scoring quite a lot as well. And it was more to see who would partner him at the World Cup up front. It was in maybe Lineker, who was a poacher, or Beardsley, a creator. But in the build-up, the team in general had started to really form together, and it included Brian Robson and Ray Wilkins in midfield and Hateley up front. But all these three players, by the third game, none of them are playing in the for England
All
anymore at
right.
this point. So it's just they're all out of the door now.
So that's not because we're out. It's not because the third game means nothing. It's just that things have changed.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be clever and go, well, none of them are playing anymore because they're all bloody out. It's just more that the circumstances have meant that by the time the third game comes around, they are all out of the team. So we'll kind of show you
We
why. So
love we love a good reactive to a first game, don't we?
honestly, I think that one of the things that is really looking at tournaments since we've been doing this, the big thing for me is kind of England come in with a settled plan. I know this is tournament football in general, but it feels like it happens to England more. They come in with a settled plan, shit goes wrong, and it's just
Yeah.
out of the window, just paper over the cracks, do whatever you can, and then somehow kind of make it through. Like again, 1990 is the big example of that as well, with a total formation change, and players go to Bobby Robson to say they want a different team, and certain people have got to be in. So yeah,
Yeah.
we do it better than anybody, I feel, while still not winning anything.
Or the last World Cup, which was Henderson's an option in midfield. So Henderson must play at no matter what. He has to play every minute of every game. He's too bloody good.
Too
Is he?
valuable to this team for this
Is he?
for the next week.
So are we going to talk about the group games in much sort of detail prior to how shit went wrong,
Yeah,
or went right, just with in a different way?
yeah, we'll kind of quickly just go over what happened in the groups. So in for England's group, so England opened the campaign against an unfancied Portugal, which the Three Lions lose 1-0. So great start. Just
Egan.
what just what you wanted, yeah. Second game was a bit of a better result, being 0-0, but came against a much worse team in Morocco. Against Morocco, Ray Wilkins became the first England player to be sent off in a World Cup, which is
Oh,
around the same time he became the first player from either side to be sent off in an FA Cup final as well. So loved a red
wow.
card around this point, did Butch?
Historic red cards.
No, yeah. Also in the Morocco game, Brian Robson was subbed off 10 minutes to go with a dislocated shoulder, which would rule him out of the tournament. And finally, Mark Hateley fell into a time portal and was transported to purgatory. Sorry, no, he was just dropped.
Yeah, well, I think you give away the ghost with your first line of inquiry there. And just on Wilkins, Butch, I think those are the records that you want to go after, isn't it? The first. You want to be the
Yeah,
first.
I want to be the first man to be ever sent off for England at a World Cup.
Nobody can take that away from me. They could get sent off quicker. They could get sent off for a more reckless foul, but I'm the first.
I
So
know.
Hateley's dropped then, the man who'd kind of led us all this way. Is the Emil Heskey siren going up yet?
What, to bring Emil in, or
Yeah,
this
to
is what
bring
happens to Emil?
a very young Emil in to replace
You're
him.
pretty fucking young to come into this team, I must say. But instead, yeah, he's dropped, and Peter Beardsley is brought in for England. You could not get much of a different forward player than Beardsley and Hateley. Hateley, this big, physical player who just headed the ball and probably never used his feet, to a man who I don't think ever headed a ball.
Well, we're going to see a lot of Beardsley as we go through. I've also met Peter Beardsley. I've probably brought this up, and I'm trying to think if I
Yes.
saw him header a ball. I did see him kick a ball, and I tell you what, still got something in there.
He still fucking hit that, I tell you.
It was just, yeah, just like I was just like, oh, struggles to walk, but give him a ball, and he can still do bits.
It's like someone's like when you see like videos of people, you see people with like dementia and they just don't know what's going on, and all of a sudden they just like get like put their old favorite record on and they're up and singing again.
Yeah, yeah. So we got Lineker coming in then.
So it's Beardsley coming into partner Lineker. So Lineker started up front with Haitley anyway, but hadn't had much success. But this was the last group game in Mexico '86, and a patched up England team had to play Poland in a do or die game. And for once, England did. They did very well as Gary Lineker scored a hat trick inside the first 36 minutes to seal progression to the knockout phase for England.
That's lovely. In a do or die situation, a hat trick inside the first 36 minutes is just what the doctor ordered.
Just wrapped up, just really wrapped up. I think we've said before, you could do some serious drinking in the pub then, couldn't you? Like it's so stress free, and you're just going, when am I going to get this chance to ever do this again? That I've got to make this count for me.
It's stress free and celebratory. You're not just relieved. You're just like, this is great.
Yeah.
And I have nothing to worry about. You can't go 3-0 up too early.
No, well, England may not have done it yet, but let's not tease that. Let's not poke the bear, shall we?
Good old Lineker. Yeah, he was amongst the goals in that tournament, wasn't he? Did he end up with a golden boot? Surely not.
Yeah, he did in this tournament, and he went on away to sealing the golden boot as well in the next game. Lady Goals was also shining on Gary in the next one as he notched up 2 of England's 3 against Paraguay, set up a date with destiny against Argentina in the quarterfinals.
Smooth sailing. That sounds like a smooth path to the semi-finals to me.
I know, yeah. Just don't need anything. They will be facing Argentina, with the best player in the world, with the most, to prove in Maradona as well. It's kind of seen this World Cup as, Maradona carried Argentina, and you kind of go, a lot of like, your people with big eyebrows, just like, well, actually, Argentina were actually quite good in the tournament. But I think there was a clip or like a video a couple of years ago that came out, and it's just Maradona putting the ball on an absolute plate for all of his Argentina teammates and then just spooning it into the air in this tournament. Like the highlight reels just from this is like more than you can imagine almost any other player, especially like at the time when he's getting the shit kicked out of him too.
I remember sort of learning about football when you're younger, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it have been amazing if somebody could just have won the World Cup basically on their own?
Yeah.
And like my dad or somebody would have been like, it's already happened,
Yeah.
Maradona. And then you
That's
learn
it.
more about it. I mean, what you primarily learn more about it because this is one of the most famous matches in World Cup history. I can't believe we haven't really touched on it before.
No, which is kind of why I've left this as like, we've talked about it a little bit, but I think going into a bit more detail around these games would be something to really do. But like you say, what follows is one of the most famous matches in World Cup history. It was the El Diego stole the show, really. First with his hand of God goal, followed by one of, if not the best individual goal of all time.
Yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? Where it's like, oh, you've cheated there with that hand of God goal, but then it's also like, same time you've scored one of the best goals ever against us.
I think in the commentary, Barry Davis is on, and he's like commentating on Maradona just running through the whole team, and he just goes, "Well, you have to say that's magnificent." Like you just there's nothing else to do. It's like, all right, you did cheat, but also that's better than anything we've ever seen before.
Yeah, another goal from Lineker. You can add that to the score sheet, but it was not enough. But England aren't the only side of the story when it comes to the Rous Cup. Scotland also looking ahead to the World Cup with not Sir, just plain old Alex Ferguson in charge as caretaker manager for the World Cup. I never knew that he was in charge and managed at a World Cup. Quite interesting.
Yeah, no,
Um,
yeah, he followed on from the death of Jock Stein, as we talked about last week as well. He would continue as the caretaker until the end of the Mexico '86. So he just saw it as a good opportunity to get himself out there and kind of maybe doing it in memory of Steen, his his
Yeah.
predecessor and his idol, really.
Definitely for that reason. So if he's managing till the end of the World Cup, does that mean if Scotland get knocked out in the group stages, he's like, whoa, wait till the final, then I'm gone just in case.
My pay packet
know.
is until the 14th of July.
So heading sort of into the World Cup, Ferguson's squad selection was a major talking point. There was a kind of a bit of a change of the guard, a bit of a dearth of talent. Some areas strong, some areas not so strong. But one major talking point was he's leaving out of Alan Hansen due to what Ferguson saw as a lack of commitment, a lack of desire to play in friendlies, which his predecessor Stein, had also seen. Kenny Dalglish was another one who made himself unavailable, apparently in solidarity with Hansen. I mean, if he's having a day off, I'm having a day off.
It's such a
Solidarity is a word for it.
I know it's such a weird thing to be like, well, my mate's not going, and I don't like how you treated my mate, so I'm just not going to go to the World Cup. It's not like going to a party who's like someone's not been invited, and you're like, well, if he's not going, I'm not going. It's like this is the World Cup, like, and
Yeah.
from the Rous Cup, I don't think it's Dalglish never graced us in the Rous Cup from what we've seen. So it's like it's just strange that he's not playing in these games, but he's playing in some of the qualifiers to get them there. And maybe he's just thinking like his star is slightly on the wane, and maybe he has got Liverpool more on the mind. And this is a thing of, well, I will stand with my Liverpool teammate Alan Hansen in this as
Bloody
well.
World Cup, though. Come on.
I know.
But yeah, it's a weird
You
one.
you kind of look at the same with like the Roy Keane thing in Saipan as well. It's like, well, it's the World Cup though. Can you not just put your differences aside for the sake of a nation?
The Andre Onana as well.
Yeah, obviously he just left the World Cup because like the manager said, no, don't play out from the back. We can't do that.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, fuck this then.
Fuck this. I'm never playing for my country
I
again.
am outlasting you.
And he's back already.
Yeah.
But yeah. So let's go all the way back to the 1996 World Cup before we get distracted with modern faff.
Rubbish.
Scotland definitely had bigger issues on their mind than Andre Onana and his desire to play it from the back about 40 years later, because they were drawn in. Well, you've called this the first ever group of death. Scotland are competing with West Germany, Denmark, and Uruguay. That's a strong group. Maybe you can give us a bit of detail as to just how strong it was.
Yeah. So Uruguay were Copa America champions going into this tournament, and the Uruguay manager had actually used the phrase for the first time that anyone can see as "we are in the group of death." So that's where the phrase comes from.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking it was officially like the first World Cup group where everyone was like, that is just
That's too
objectively
hard.
difficult. We need to change the difficulty settings.
If you're like, it's like doing it on like a game or something, and you're just like doing randoms, like, no, not doing that one.
No, I want to
Get
have
Northern
some fun.
Ireland in the group.
I don't care if they're not qualified. Take out France.
India, they're going in the group.
So that was the Denmark manager who said that.
That was the Uruguay manager. They were Copa America champions. The Danish team were kind of, we said like on one of the previous ones that they'd won in England to kind of take themselves to a European championship. I think it was the previous championships to this, and they had started to become a really popular cult team. And by this point, they are the cult team in the world. They are the coming kind of like European team and seen as a slight outsiders for the tournament, but people who've seen them are like, okay, they could be very, very good. And West Germany here as well, back for another taste of that Mexican jet lag too.
As I say, the Germany side needs no sort of explanation as to how they figure in a group of death. Let's have a look at how Scotland get on. They lost their first game to Denmark 1-0. They would take the lead against West Germany, but fall behind in the second half and were unable to recover. So that's 2 losses. Do you think it's going well?
No.
Does that
Could
make
go
you
better.
sad?
I'm going to say they scored the goal. That was good, but yeah, I mean, Denmark, who in the in their other game beat Uruguay 6-1, so Scotland kind of got off a bit light with that, and then West Germany again. You're saying West Germany would end up reaching the World Cup final to play Argentina as well. So they're clearly no mugs either.
Yeah. But Scotland can somehow still qualify from this group. No?
Yeah, they
Oh,
can.
yeah.
It's ridiculous, really. This kind of like obscene nature of like a potential 3-team being able to get out of a group. Like I
Yeah, of a
just don't like
14.
that at all.
Yeah. So to do that, they needed to beat Uruguay. So Uruguay had drawn with West Germany in the opening game before being stuffed 6-1 by Denmark in the second. So any form of win for Scotland would see them through. Of course, easier said than done in the group of death. Um, and maybe group of death is the right word for Uruguay because they were lunging in all over the shop quite recklessly and could have caused some damage.
Yeah, very very shitty in their opening. In some games, I'll say they were by all accounts lucky to escape with fewer bookings than they deserved as well. And yeah, it's a proper bitch of a game this is for Scotland here. And kind of, yeah, what follows is a really disgusting match, which saw Uruguay's Jose Batista sent off in the first minute for an awful challenge from behind on Gordon Strachan.
Yeah, yeah. There's a quote from Gordon Strachan on this challenge. He says, "I wouldn't have a clue what that guy looked like to this day. I've never seen his face at any point in the game, and by the time I got back up, he'd been sent off." I mean, I'm sure he's had a photograph taken of him. This man.
I know. I love that though. It's just like I didn't even see him. What was that? What happened? He's gone.
I
Where was
know.
I never said hello.
Imagine if it was like his best friend all along. You know,
Like they're
on his day.
soulmates.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, oh, I've always kept this from you, but you need to know now. It was me who
What
did that tackle.
whatever could have been, hey.
I know. Uruguay. So they had to just get a draw, really. Scotland had to win. Um, they carried on, really, in that same vein, going in on tackles, time wasting, really setting the tone for what would become known later on as shithousing, really. And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Uh, and well, it depends which way you look at this, but they weren't the only shithouses because Ferguson had dropped Graham Souness from the squad. I'm sure that Souness thought he was a bit of a shithouse for that.
He absolutely did. Yeah, this was kind of. There's a few reasons Ferguson says for this. So one of them is the fact that Graham Souness had lost a stone in weight since he'd been in Mexico,
So maybe he'd been
just through
on the
sweat.
hot shithouse too much with the tacos and
All
stuff.
through that. Yeah, there's lots of ways to lose weight. I'm not going to dictate that to anybody, but yeah, he said that. But they'd Graham Souness at this point as well is the actual Rangers manager during this too. So
Jesus,
clearly
that's
thinks he
so
knows better
crazy.
too.
That is mad. Yeah, yeah, making the big calls. Ferguson is though. It's interesting just how bloody dominant he was in terms of trying to assert his dominance on the squad at this point as well.
But this is all so much kind of like old school as well, isn't it? Like Scotland have got a caretaker manager to take them through to the World Cup because their previous manager died. They've also got the Rangers manager playing for them.
Yeah,
Like it all just feels a bit like doesn't work. And like Kenny Dalglish, I think is not far away from taking like the Liverpool job. Like there's all this kind of like old school that you don't see anymore, like player manager stuff going on, which I think
yeah.
is maybe seeing this as a bit like, well, you should have given me the job then.
I think they're just these days just go on like a PR course for a year instead of being a player manager. It's like, right, when you're ready to face Sky Sports cameras at the end of a game, that's when you're ready. We all know you know about football and you've done your badges. But yeah, um, you know, these rifts, this leaving out big players, this bloody group of death, it was just all a bit too much for Scotland and they couldn't get over the line. Sorry to say.
No, they absolutely couldn't. No, they exited the tournament 0-0 in this game, and yeah, just no good for anybody. Scotland kind of went home again, not performing in a World Cup. I think they've never escaped the group stages of a World Cup. They've never progressed, even with some of the teams they've had. I
Yeah.
think they've been in like just 3 successive World Cups at this point as well, so they were just like out of it.
Yeah. Ferguson had some very, very strong words after the game talking about the Uruguayans. and their sort of performance. It's a shambles. It's not just a part of football, it's the whole bloody attitude of the nation. They've got no respect for people's dignity. That's true.
It's so Ferguson as well, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It's a disgrace what they did and turns the game into a complete farce. You'd never think that in a competition such as the World Cup, with all that talk of a FIFA clampdown on ill discipline, that one team would be able to overpower the whole system. After what happened today and the traumas that have happened to world football in the last year, referencing things such as the Heysel disaster there, I'll tell you, I'm glad to go home, believe me, because it's no part of football. We've been accepting it for years and years, but it's not my problem any longer. It's FIFA's problem. It will be Argentina's problem on Monday. Ooh,
Proper deep state Ferguson, that isn't it? Just fucking
yeah,
what's broken from this down. You're supposed to be clamping down. The whole system's wrong. We need to start again.
yeah, very upset. You could tell that fire was burning him, and he probably would have. Well, we know that he's a serial winner, so he would have wanted to do better with Scotland at the World Cup, but nothing seemed to really be flying for them right at that time. And that marks the end of his reign as Scotland manager, really. He becomes Manchester United manager 5 months later. How would you feel now if Manchester United got a manager who just uh, exited the group stage of the World Cup after a nil-nil draw against a 10-man team and 2 losses? You'd be thinking, Christ.
What have they done here? Just like this,
Yeah,
this is your guy. But I guess it's just on the backdrop of just the incredible job he had done at Aberdeen, wasn't it? Which is kind of why
yeah.
Steen had seen him as the man to come in and be his number two, and maybe in his head, say maybe to take over one point. But do you think at this point Ferguson's going, okay, I'll get out now, carry on where I am, and would you think he'd have liked another crack at it?
I think the talent he ended up managing at Manchester United was much better than the talent he could have managed at Scotland. And I think he almost got like, when you could say about a band, like they just got so big that
Hmm.
they're like they lose the right to experiment that much, because it's like you can't go so weird because you have to play stadiums. That's the only gigs you can do. And it's like Fergie, it's like you have to manage Manchester United in the Champions League. You can't really go and have a crack at Scotland without potentially damaging your sort of legacy. And I think legacy would have been a big thing for him, even though he's always very forward thinking.
But I think even he mustn't have thought. I know managers were around a lot longer back then, but even then, they're just thinking like, okay, well, when I leave, yeah, I'll go here and there, and I'll go and win things in England for whoever. I think Spurs had already tried to sign him at some point as well, before he became Man United manager. But you just think at some point he must have thought, right, that didn't go well. I'll have another crack at that.
Oh
One
yeah.
day, like we all think Jose Mourinho is going to be the Portugal manager. We just don't know when he's going to decide that, because it's seen as the thing you do towards an end of an international career. Apart from Roberto Martinez, which is going the totally other way.
Yeah. No, I think at the time, Ferguson would definitely have been factoring that into his plans. He could just never have seen how bloody successful he would have been at Manchester
Yeah,
United coming, even though he would have backed himself to have done well. But anyway, World Cups, historic, legendary managers, bloody Maradona. We don't need none of it, mate. We don't.
the Adidas Tango, the superstar from the World Cup.
It's the honeymoon is, yeah, we've gone on our holidays, but now it's back to the sort of the day-to-day routine of this newly blissful relationship between England and Scotland, because it's year 3 of the Rous Cup.
Yep, with the World Cup firmly in the rearview mirror for both sides, a new cycle can begin, all leading to the biggest prize in the sport, the 3rd annual Rous Cup. However, a new and interesting and quite mad twist has been introduced into the mix here, a mystery 3rd team.
A mystery 3rd team. Wow, my guess was going to be a bear.
Just
That
a bear on the
was-
side. I mean, that you probably could
yeah,
have got a bear quite easily back then.
and not on the side, in the middle of the pitch at kickoff, and you just got to play around it. Good luck.
Good luck, everyone. Release the bear at halftime.
So
No, Ben.
a 3rd team I would put my money on Northern Ireland, maybe
Well,
Wales.
what I was going to say, like, would it kind of be, oh, sorry, didn't mean to piss you off. Do you fancy getting back in on this, to be all right again, or is it like maybe even an island, the Republic, to be like, olive branch, we want to mend,
Bit of
bridges
spice.
and that kind of thing. Yeah, that's actually something that's never been in here in their Republic incarnation.
Yeah.
Let's bring them in. That'd be quite interesting.
Surely this just for my own brain's sake. Surely this wasn't a mystery team. We're just doing this for the show, right?
Yes, it was not a mystery team. It was arranged beforehand.
Okay. Let's put us out of our misery then. Is it Wales? Is it Northern Ireland? Is it the Republic of Ireland?
None of the above. No. The third team who would take part in this all British home championships tribute tie was Brazil.
We've done it to ourselves. You've just ruined 102 years of home nation's bliss and integrity.
I mean, they
Brazil?
just they just couldn't help themselves, could they? They
No.
just couldn't help of just getting the begging bowl out for the money and just being
Yeah.
like, "Oh, come on, make it better."
It's like Walsall and Millwall going, right, we're going to just play each other every year and then going, we've asked Real Madrid to join our little competition.
But it's like, why are you getting someone else involved in your argument? It is properly like as a couple arguing, and then they're just like, "Well, what do you think?" And it's like,
They've,
I've literally nothing to do with this." No, no, you were here. You saw what happened. It's like, oh, do I have to get involved here?
I'm having a much better time than you two are.
Yep, I'm
Leave me to
I'm
it.
not in a really messy relationship, thank you.
So Brazil, a free team tournament as well. That's a bit of a strange one. Um,
Yeah.
so do you have much on how the Brazil thing how it came about?
I think the FA are just saying that, okay, this is good. This Scotland England thing, we like this. Can we maybe make it better? Because they had been playing each other for literally over 100 years at this point, and maybe they were just like, it's already losing a bit of the spice. What else should we do? And like I say, is it kind of like when a European team goes and plays a cup, like the Super Cup final in Saudi Arabia or Qatar or something like that? Is it just getting more eyes on it? But that's kind of the official reason for introducing a third team is it would be a different South American team each year, so Scotland and England could get more experience playing each other. And I say that in kind of like the kindest way to Scotland and England, high quality opposition up to
That's
their
interesting.
level.
That's actually better that there's a different team each year, but it's not going to be that different, is it? It is just a bad idea. I'm trying to say
Yeah.
that's a nice element of it, but overall, I mean, it's a bad idea.
Yeah, I think it's not a good idea at all. And the thing is though, the you know the whole reason for demolishing the home championships, the few years previous, was so that England and Scotland could go and play better teams. They then went and invented their own competition so they could still play each other, but are still trying to play better teams. But at the same time, they're going to play friendlies in Israel and Egypt and God knows where else as well, all over the world. And you're like, well, what are you doing? You're not using that time constructively.
Why didn't you just try and set up a friendly with Brazil?
Yeah, they must have just gone. Yeah, I just want to play Brazil. Really, I mean that'd be quite fun. And what about that Brazil? There's a trophy on, for up for grabs here. Do you want another trophy to your never-ending list?
Oh dear, dear, dear. I don't even know where do we. So is that this? Is that how it sets up? Then we're in 1986. Are we in 1987?
I think now we move now into 87.
And that's England, Scotland, and Brazil for the Rous Cup.
So this is England, Scotland, Brazil. Yeah, they're invited to take part, and Scotland and England have already got sick of playing each other clearly. But it all with this, it feels like they have played each other too much already. Like I said, they've been playing each other for over 100 years, and this kind
Oh,
of sham of an excuse to play one another has already kind of run its course.
if
And
you
if
think
people
they've
are,
already played each other too much, wait till the end of this fucking episode. My God.
it's just too much. It feels like what they probably should have done with hindsight is it should have been a bit like the Ashes. So maybe you play each other every 2 years in a non-tournament potential year, and
Mm.
maybe every 2 years you play a game in Hampden, and then
Yeah.
2 years later you play a game at Wembley. So you've at least got time to like miss it, because that's the big thing with all this kind of thing. It's got to go. If there was a World Cup every 2 years, which is what half of FIFA are trying to do, it is going to be less special. That's why
Mm.
international football at European Championships or a World Cup is so interesting, because you don't get it every week, you don't get it every year.
Yeah. If only they had you in charge. How quickly can you sum up the new structure of how this tournament will work?
It's pretty simple. Onwards and upwards. The new structure would work as follows: the teams would play 3 games, with the winners of each game collecting 2 points for a win. England and Scotland could both host Brazil in their respective stadiums. So Scotland haven't got to play Brazil at Wembley, because that would be a disaster. And Scotland would host England in this year's incarnation, and England would host Scotland in the next tournament. All done and dusted. Let's dive in.
We've got a lot of roast to get through. And what better place to start than England versus Brazil, live from Wembley Stadium on the 19th of May, 1987. We have an experimental. Oh, I don't know why I called it. I just naturally called it an experimental England team. Let's see if that was right. Peter Shilton in goal. Defense: Gary Stevens, Tony Adams, Terry Butcher, and Stuart Pearce. Midfield: Chris Waddle, Peter Reid, Brian Robson, and John Barnes. Up front: Peter Beardsley and Gary Lineker. There's a lot of coverage of people who have become personalities or TV presenters since in that
Yeah.
lineup.
Yeah,
Managers.
definitely. I mean, first thing that sprung out to me, that's too early for Tony Adams. Put him back in. He's not done yet.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he'd be still playing 13 years later.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
but it's just like, how young was he? He must have been really mega young breaking in at Arsenal at this point.
yeah, yeah. Alongside Terry Butcher as well. And it's just like, yeah, Peter Reid's a strange one. I may have said this before. I always thought he was an English. I always thought he was like, I don't know what I
Scottish
thought.
or
I don't know
something.
what I thought he was. Yeah, because I've heard
He
him
was
speak.
he was Scouse, not English, I'll have you know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure
That's
he'd
what it
tell.
is.
Yeah, so Gary Lineker and Beardsley up front. Stuart Pearce making his debut as well. Um, is Lineker still? Is he kind of? This is post Golden Boot, as we've mentioned, so he must be playing for Spurs
Uh, at,
or
at this
in
point, he has
China.
moved. He has, or not in Japan yet. No, he's not made it over there yet. No, Lineker at this point has moved to Barcelona, and is one of the
Yeah,
biggest stars in world football, following his golden boot in Mexico. So pretty good for a man who was being kept out by Mark Hateley a year ago.
yeah. So he was straight in there, wasn't he? There was no kind of basking in the glory of his World Cup results in England. Just get me out of here. I'm too
Yeah.
liberal for this country.
I know, yeah, so he's going over to the wokest place on earth, Barcelona, clearly. Yeah, he'd moved over there. I think it would have been, I think we said on a recent one, Venables may have been in charge around this point. So kind of
Yeah,
bringing him over, but he never really shone in Barcelona. He went, he embraced the culture, as few English people do, and really enjoyed his time over there. But it was kind of being like shunted out wide. I mean, Jesus, a player you never put out wide would be Gary Lineker, really.
yeah. It's a bit Keegan with Michael Owen, isn't it? And trying to play him as
Yeah.
the big man in a big man, little man combination with Alan Shearer. Brazil, looking forward to this then. Do you want to give us the names, the hit list? LA,
Let's have a
Ronaldo.
let's have a quick run through some of these to see if anyone can recognize any of these. So Carlos Roberto Gallo, Yosimar, Geraldado, Ricardo Rocha, Douglas, Nelsinho, Muller, Silas Pereira, Mirandinha, Edu Morango, and Valdo. So names, they're just words I've said to a lot of people there, and to a lot of me. Not a vintage Brazil side in terms of names and recognition, I don't think.
No. Muller's an interesting one
Because it's German.
because it's German. Yeah. Maybe one worth googling, but yeah, not vintage. I mean, maybe even a non-vintage Brazil side is going to be more than enough to put
I
England
don't think they
away.
were a bad team. I think they've probably just come in between periods of, that Brazil team we talked about a while ago, which was like the most popular Brazil team ever, even though they never won anything. And then before you look into like the '94 team, who were quite unpopular but still won a World Cup.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? This Muller, Christ, he was playing from 1984 up until 2004. That's a stretch.
It's like Rivaldo, isn't it? Though just like some Brazilians just either give up mega early and just get horrendously fat, or they just go, "I'm never stopping. Why would I stop? This is great."
Yeah. So yeah, not much really, isn't much for us to go up at with
There
that.
is there is but one name though that I picked out that I thought was that I actually did recognize from the whole team, and that is Yosimar. Have you ever heard of him?
Yosimar. No, I mean I'll just say no. I can't pretend.
So that's absolutely fine. Yosimar. He actually made his debut for Brazil in the 1986 World Cup. So you imagine playing your first game for Brazil. Oh, it's at the tournament as well, starting. Just
That's what other countries do so much better than England,
I know you
and
just
it
could not.
always works for them.
Exactly, yeah. It's not possible for an English person, is it? But he went on to be one of the stars of the tournament as well, scoring one of the goals of the tournament. On his debut against Northern Ireland, he picked the ball up about 25 yards out on the right hand side of the penalty area. Yosimar kind of looks up, and you can just see him kind of going, could have a strike. But our man is open on the fuck it, and he just absolutely lets it fly and thrashes into the net, and he just runs off in a celebration of just disbelief. It's just really one of the great World Cup goals. And Josimar followed that up with another goal against Poland in another game as well, and was named the right back of the tournament as well. Josimar Star only shone for a short amount of time, and in his own words, the blondes came and the training went. I was supposed to be at the peak of my career, but I wasted all the money, lost all the credibility, and worst of all, I lost contact with my kids.
It's very Alan Partridge ending to quite a
Yeah.
sad quote.
He actually did reconcile with one of his children who went on to also be a footballer as well,
Okay,
which is
okay.
nice.
That's yeah, the happy ending after a sad start. Alan Partridge middle, happy ending. That's
But
good
also
stuff.
very good player at the World Cup. So there you go. That was the one Brazilian that stood out to me before we kind of talk about England v Brazil.
Yeah, I thought England looked pretty good in in this game compared to the most recent Rous Cup example we'd seen. I'm sure they improved in between Rous Cup and World Cup, and this was a continuation of that. But certainly a lot more zip. I think the last time we were watching them in the Rose Cup was fucking nonsense against Scotland, wasn't it? And well, obviously it was against Scotland, but I seem to remember it being a pretty bad game.
Yeah, it wasn't a great game at all. And like what we're going to do in this one, just so people know as well, we're kind of just going to only focus on the Rouse in this bit because we've got a few to get through and we are just wanting to go through. So we're kind of we're going to look at England every kind of year almost. So you can see from the last one, as you said, they've evolved, and a year on almost from the World Cup, that team is still kind of there as well and performing quite well. I mean, are treated as well to Kevin Keegan being on commentary in this game as well, which was really enjoyable. And one of his was, I'm glad to see Chris Waddle win his battle with the crowd. Win his battle with the crowd. I mean, I don't really know what had already gone on, but
Yeah.
Keegan straight away said, well, he's shown them, hasn't he? Like it's 20 minutes in.
Yeah, yeah. I think he was saying that it took him a while to warm to him, but maybe they have now. But God, he's he says some stuff on commentary on this. One of my personal favourites after a nice Peter Beardsley cross, which flashes past the goal. Keegan says, he just likes dropping little good eggs all over the pitch, this fella. He's unbelievable. I think he's caught between wanting to just call him a good egg and he likes dropping. I don't know what he thought he was dropping across the like treats.
I don't know if he's maybe misspoken there as well, because I heard that as well, but I wasn't sure if I think he tries to say grenades, but I don't think it comes out right.
Well, he's mentioned grenades with to Paul Scholes years later, hasn't he? So yeah,
Exactly, and I think that was also a phrase that came from when his playing time at Liverpool as well, possibly under Paisley or Shankly. So again, so it's a phrase, but the way he splurts it out, it is kind of like, oh, good eggs. What's he said there?
He's a good egg. England get a goal created by Peter Beardsley, the good egg. He has the beating of his man, speeds to gallop past the defender. More on that shortly. His flying cross is met by an equally flying header from an unmarked Gary Lineker to give England the lead.
Forward with the header. Pierce straight forward with the pass to Reed. Simple ball this time to Robson. Now finding Beardsley. And on this evening's form, nobody better to find. Look at that for acceleration. Custine! What a superb England goal! Well, he's done it again, Gary Lineker. And the man who made it again is this fella, Peter Beardsley. What about this for acceleration? And what a superb little cross. And then a flying, Houchin-like header. And England into the lead, a goal to nil. From another angle now, always worth a view. Brilliant play by Beardsley. Delightful little cross. Flying header by Lineker. England ahead. Kevin Keegan.
Well, those new boots certainly work for Lineker, Brian. Tremendous goal. I mean, what can you say? The little fella's, he's accelerating unbelievable, his bravery. And I mean, Lineker must go down to his knees to see a guy like that. He's got to be worth 5 or 6 goals a year.
Oh, the goal now for Medina. After work by Miller. And almost at once, Brazil are back at level. Shilton couldn't hold it. It was Muller in the first place. A good run here. Gets his cross in. Shilton at the stretch couldn't hold it. Adams caught off balance and Mirandinha into the roof of the net. And that's 1-1. 2 goals in a minute.
Quite a lot to digest there. We cut to the audio of an England goal. We ended up getting an England goal and a Brazil goal. So let's just take it as it came to us. We kind of give the description for the England goal. A flying header from Lineker. England are loving a flying header in this era. There was one from Hoddle last time out. All these players that you don't think of as flying. I mean, he's put a sail through the air in the 80s, don't they?
I know, just absolutely like a lawn dart. They're just flying around, aren't they? And again, Lineker was so unmarked as well for a player who won the golden boot literally a year ago. But even in the time in that clip that it takes them to talk about the England goal, Brazil have already equalised, and it's just so perfect the way it just leads up to it, and then Keegan just finishes his sentence, and then Brazil tap it in.
Well, let me talk about that Keegan sentence because this blew my mind. He keeps calling him the little fella, and he does in the description of the goal. Beardsley, that is. Sorry, he keeps calling Beardsley the little fella. He's saying he's so good that he must be worth 5 or 6 goals a year, and that Lineker must
The striker.
worth 5 or 6 goals a year. This is not much, but this bit, Lineker must get down on his knees when he sees a guy like that.
Move on, Kevin. You imagine the producer in his ear. Kevin, shut up. Let's just move on. This is the 80s. Come on.
Well, luckily for him, as you say, he was given something new to talk about a split second later, because Brazil scored. Bit of a shit goal.
Yeah. I like that Brian Moore in that as well. Just kind of like you can almost feel his arm stepping over Keegan to commentate, and he's like, "Oh, it's in."
Yeah,
Like, just like shut up now. The game's back on, and yeah, it's a shit goal to concede. Shilton spills it, like a cross shot, and it just falls into the path to Mirandinha. And Shilton actually has a go at Tony Adams in this because Adams is walking towards the goal, thinking that Shilton's either going to parry it, and he's either going to parry it or catch it. Then doesn't realise the ball's near his feet because why would you? And it's just roofed into the net as well. And I thought it was just really. A bit of another Rick from Shilton. I don't think he's just not ended up being a hero on this pod, has he?
No, he's not endeared himself to us that much. But bullying young, unready Tony Adams.
Undercooked.
It was an awful parry. Jesus Christ. I was watching, I was like, ooh, that's not how parries work.
You need to ask Mike Parry about this, clearly.
Mirandinho with the goal. We both kind of thought Mirandinho is a bit of a This entire Brazil team, to be honest, sounds like Master League PES players.
Yeah, totally. That's why I can't quite place them, because in my head they are just the classic Brazil team that you unlock
Yeah,
like
that's
during
true.
it, and I'm just like, what's happened here? But yeah,
So
I think it's Mirandinha, and apparently you found there's a Minanda.
Menander, I think, is the closest you're going to get, and I think that's
Yeah.
probably where it set us off. A PES stats site. Menander is a fictional player playing with the Master League default players. He's from Portugal. He's very old and will retire very quickly. How's about that then?
I
That
remember
rings a
having
bell.
him, and he was great. You play him as a number 10, and he would just slalom past all the players. I thought he was brilliant. I kept him for a long time. I did.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering whether that was referring to a particular year of PES. I wonder whether they aged these made up players. So 2013, maybe he didn't retire straight away, but 2017. Anyway, we have our first foreign goal in the Rous Cup to make it 1-1. This is not what we voted for.
It's not.
Stuart Pearce gets a yellow card for a challenge on Josimar, however you choose to pronounce it. Not really fair on Stuart Pearce, that one.
No, it's actually a shocking challenge by Josimar. But it's Josimar who's actually sat wailing on the floor after digging his studs into Pearce. Like when you first see it, it's like, oh, that's bad from Pearce, and he clearly just walks up and goes away, and the referee books him. But when you look back, like Josimar's jumped in on Pearce, his studs have gone into him, and it's Josimar holding his foot, like he's just like kicked a big tree or something.
Yeah, and it's that's what happens when you invite foreigners into the Rous Cup. They're going to start playing dirty. Ferguson warned about Uruguay.
He did.
Not too far from Brazil geographically. Maybe they are actually, but they're both South American.
It's
I
also
don't know.
It's also Stuart Pearce. He looks 34 in this game already. Like he has just always looked that age until he retired, and then he just looked like the retired age Stuart Pearce.
Yeah.
He never changed it. All he could have been when he was 41 playing for England. Looks the same as when he's probably about 21 here.
What was the band? He was in a music video for a band, wasn't it? The Stranglers. That was it a couple of years ago.
That is so Pearce.
It's a good video. It nails it, to be fair.
Has he
the
got much to
game,
nail in it, really?
it's kind of like I'm not like Bittersweet Symphony, but it's kind of like a man walking towards the camera, and
Right.
making faces.
He smashed
Anyway,
that then.
yeah. England won, Brazil won. That's how the game ends up. Thoughts, Nick?
Yeah, I thought it's kind of the same as what Bobby Robson says after the game. He says that he isn't displeased with the result, but he says that Beardsley has worked like a Trojan tonight. I mean, first, worked like a Trojan. I don't think that's a phrase. Secondly, Peter Beardsley. That's another pro reference of didn't have the name for Peter Beardsley.
Work like a Trojan. Yeah, not really. Unless he was like deployed in a way that he wasn't supposed, like a way that he played in a way he wasn't supposed to.
I don't know. It seemed quite well, let's call him that. It seemed quite Beardsley, didn't it? From if we know Beardsley, then I guess that's correct, really.
Yeah. Is this the goal with his pace, with his ridiculous run?
Yeah, he just absolutely blasts it past the defender and then chips it in for Lineker with the diving header. Yeah, again, I never thought acceleration and Beardsley were in the same sentence.
Yeah, well, maybe that's the Trojan effect. You didn't expect him to run.
I think Bobby just got confused with his words, as he was one to do.
Well, who can blame him? It's all a very confusing situation. But England have a Rous point, or is it half a point? Because two's for a win. It's one. Great. The Rous Cup 3 match 2 is Scotland versus England at Hampden Park on Saturday, the 23rd of May, 1987. Do you want to give us the England lineup, Nick?
Yeah. It's 5 changes from the previous team with Chris Woods coming in for Shilton. And then we've also got Mark Wright, Steve Hodge, Glenn Hoddle, and Mark Haitley making an appearance as well. So Lineker rested for Scotland. They need more physicality in Haitley.
Yeah, definitely need to drop Lineker. Yeah, definitely.
Clearly.
Scotland, Jim Leighton, Richard Gough, Murdo McLeod, I don't know, Paul McStay, Alex McLeish, Willie Miller, Ali McCoist, Roy Aitken, Brian McClare, Neil Simpson, and Ian Wilson. So that's a clean sweep of the troublesome gang of Dalglish, Souness, and Hansen. They're all gone by this point. I mean, they do know how to win a Rous Cup. That's the thing. You know, when you lose them, you lose that.
You are losing that clear experience, aren't you? But as you say, Brian McClare and Andy McCoy's brought in as the new generation, really, and a new manager for Scotland as well, with Andy Roxburgh taking the job, a largely unknown coach and man back in 1987.
And did he just pop up out of a swamp?
Yeah, he's got a bit of the gardener about the look of him, doesn't he? He's got a bit of the Titchmarsh when I look at him.
Yeah, and a bit of the Peter Beardsley as well.
Beasley, we've got Beasley in there
Beasley.
as well.
Yeah. What's he been up to then? How's he got this job after Sir Alec?
Yeah, so Roxburgh had been within the Scottish Football Association for 10 years previously, predominantly working as a youth coach, and actually won the 1982 Under-18s European Championships with Scotland, and was later appointed to the rather lovely position of Director of Coaching.
That's good going.
Director of Coaching is like,
Yeah.
want to go down the pub?
That's coaching. That's
Yep.
coaching. So was he he won a tournament not that long ago with under 18, so they should be coming through now.
Yeah, you'd think again he probably would have played with some of the, or he would have managed some of the players who were in the Scotland team now, so he would have known them as well. When he was talking about the job, he was like, he said the job was suddenly advertised. Maybe there's a good reason for that. You know, the previous man had died, so suddenly, it wasn't coming up at any point soon. I mean, imagine being him in the interview. You're like, oh, why did the last guy leave? Oh, he died. You still interested?
Yeah. A little article you've linked me to. Andy Who was the headline which greeted his appointment. Come on, show a bit of bloody Rouse respect, would you? We've got a Rouse Cup to think about. You can't be like splitting allegiances here. We've all got to be focused on the same thing. And that is the game at hand. Just 4 days after England's match with Brazil, they're in Scotland playing against the Scot-ish. Barry Davies on commentary in the game. Lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. And early on, I don't know how Brian Robson missed a header from 4 yards out with so much power.
Yeah, I think there's a cross from Glenn Hoddle, and it is absolutely twatted just towards the goal. And even for the fact that like Robson just tries to get his head on it and anywhere near it, that kind of it just hits him and just goes there. It could have gone in, it could have gone anywhere, and no goal.
Anywhere.
It literally could have gone in the goal or anywhere. That's fine. But then you've also got the other side of half time. Brian Robson has his own Raheem Sterling-esque ghost goal. I would say goal disallowed, but I mean it was never given. But also you can just hear all the England fans cheering as it goes in. And I was watching, I was like, oh, that's not supposed to happen.
That's not on englandstats.com.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
McStay for Scotland had a great run for England's defence. That led to a bit of it was genuinely quite a mad scramble. I think that kind of paints a picture as to how this game's sort of going. I think it's all there in terms of entertainment, especially compared to the last time, but nobody's putting it in the net.
No, I think you've said as well, it's just an awful thing of why can no one finish in this era? Why can no one finish in the Rous Cup? Why are they so desperately trying not to score? I mean, Charlie Nicholas has a chance. How he doesn't score, I don't know. I mean, last time we saw him, he was a piece of unwanted party furniture at Wembley, just being carried away by the medical staff.
Yeah. Oh dear. England actually have a goal disallowed for an elbow from Mark Haitley. And yeah, that's fair enough. But it's the spectre, the ghost of Brazil at the feast has kind of shrunken England and Scotland, and they, end up with a 0-0 draw. The sort of result that would have put the entire premise of the Rous Cup into disarray previously, when it was the only game.
And that's the thing. That's what already it's kind of like, okay, there's 3 teams. They've got to play another one. Yeah, I mean, what were they doing? Were they just shared the trophy? Because I think back then penalty shootouts weren't as much of a thing. Like it was just like group stage, you goes to points, and then there's a replay and all that. And so we're way past like the crazy replays. I mean, we can't have another England-Scotland game. That'd just be silly. But you're just thinking, well, what would have happened? Maybe they like if it was only these two, they may have just shared the trophy, which is just crap. No one wants that.
Yeah. Yeah. We have another game from this year to look at. That is Scotland versus 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 Brazil.
We've done it.
There's no third man.
We've done it. We've finally started covering a game on Is This England that isn't an England game. This is it. This is the
Burnley.
first one. By the end of this Rouse, there'll be maybe others, but let's not make it a real thing.
Yeah, Scotland versus Brazil then. Jesus Christ. I can't even begin to think of what the implications are for England. But anyway, let's dive in. I'm sure it will all become apparent.
Become very clear.
Yeah, Scotland made 3 changes: Vandy Gorham, Jim McAnally, and Davy Cooper coming in. And 1 change for Brazil with Ray coming in for Silas Pereira. My understanding has just kind of developed to I'm just hearing through my earpiece now that this is the deciding game of the tournament. Why? Why is that? Because England lost to Brazil. So either Brazil or Scotland win.
They drew with Brazil, though. That's
Okay.
what's confusing. So it's just like, I don't even want to. Let's not go through the permutations. Let's just say this is the last group game, and whatever will be, will be. A winner will be crowned, and that's fine. I mean, I started watching the highlights for this yesterday. There are 2 versions on YouTube: the 2-minute 6-second version, or the 1 hour 46 minutes 24 seconds version. Which did you watch, Jord?
I watched the 2 minutes 6-second version on double
Correct.
speed.
The right answer. That's the correct one. I did actually start watching the long version, not thinking I was going to get through it, but I was just like, okay. Because I think some of the better things is kind of in the build of what everyone's thinking, what everyone's doing.
Yeah, your partner's been on holiday for a week, hasn't she?
Exactly, yeah. So I've had a little bit of time. I started watching this, and the Scottish commentator is talking about this tie being a really historic one, like producing great football, and then starts listing a loads of games which Scotland predominantly lose to Brazil and they never win.
Yeah.
And he also mentions Brazil beating Scotland in the 1982 World Cup, saying, on that amazing night in Seville, where Brazil won 4-1, but the players and fans showed the world what a festival football could be. I'm sorry. Has he been taking acid or something during this? He's just going, oh, isn't it great when Scotland and England play, Scotland and Brazil play each other? Oh, there's the stories I could tell you. It's like, not good. It's not good for Scotland, not one.
And I like the idea of Scotland taking credit. There's always good football in this tie. You could say that about any Brazil matches. Like San Marino could go San Marino versus Brazil always produces good football.
Yeah, it's just football happening to you. It's just all happening around you, and just
Brazil
like,
are
wasn't that
good.
lovely? Yeah, Brazil are good.
You just got pissed up and like Brazil as a country. You're going to have to lead on this because, as I say, I watched it in 63 seconds with one eye elsewhere. So
it's fine. Yeah, the commentator does name check Jim Baxter, so that was a lovely one for me as well to hear. But first goal comes on 51 minutes, and the commentator will be delighted to see Brazil score. So up the Scots.
Yeah, that's playing their part in this storied fixture.
Totally. It's Nelsinho who absolutely wallops a shot at the Scotland goal from the wide left, and Andy Gorham spills it into Raya, who scores a scissor kick from about a yard out, which is which is nice and fun. But the shot comes when Nelsinho crosses it, the ball into the box, is cleared straight back to him, and he just kind of picks the ball up like really wide left out, and you can see him just go, yeah, fuck it, and he absolutely rockets a shot towards the goal that Gorham just kind of like, it just explodes in front of him. And again, it's just like when you're really good at a game and just going, yeah, I'm just with it. I love when I can just shoot from here with this person, and he's just taking the piss.
Yeah. I mean, Brazil against Scotland taking the piss, who would have thought it? But not in the Rous Cup. Show some respect.
I know. Yeah, you shouldn't even be here. Like, Scotland must be pissed off. Like, we should not have to be playing Brazil. This is stupid. Like, we're not ready for this. And then 9 minutes later, Brazil wrap it up with another amazing example of playing someone on a game. when they're chasing and you are just a much better player and you've got a much better team as well. Like, it's such a beautiful goal. Brazil kind of find the ball in their own possession on the halfway line, and like some Brazilian regen just plays a scooped pass with the outside of their foot over the top of the Scotland defence, and Valdo runs through. He moves into the area and just jinks right, dummies to shoot, only to move to his left foot, and does Willie Miller so bad his legs just disappear into the ground, and he has a sit down as Valdo slots it in. It is beautiful.
Well done, Brazil.
I would kind of say, if you're going to watch something from this, the Rouse of this, I'd say maybe this goal. It was like so
The
lovely to
hipster's
watch.
choice. The
Yeah,
hipster's
the
choice.
hipster's choice. It was lovely, and it's such a nice move. The Scotland fans are genuinely like clapping Valdo as he runs off, celebrating, just going, "Yeah,
Pathetic.
well, I guess that's fine. Yeah, what else did we expect was going to happen?"
I think they all need to grow the fuck up. England couldn't mathematically compete. If this game decided the tournament, which it did, I don't even know. Screw them. Screw them. I didn't like that, Nick. Not
who
enough
he-
England for me.
No, not good, not good enough. And at full time, there are so many topless men, like almost instantly. Like the
Yeah.
whistle is blown and then shirts off everyone. And it is, we'll come back to it in a minute, but there is like so many. Without all this, there is the big tradition of swapping shirts. Is like you kind of realize how much it's lost today, actually, in comparison, because in these games, everyone's just got their top off instantly, about to
Yeah.
just give it to someone.
Yeah, that's very true. There's a lot of talk about the merits of shirt swapping a bit later on, but at the end of the game, the trophy, the Rous Trophy, is going all the way over to Brazil.
It's a good job Stan did not live to see this day of
know.
Brazil, someone else winning his trophy as well. And really, do you think it's been devalued?
Yep.
With yes, okay,
It's
fine. We'll move on.
completely worthless. I mean, it didn't have any value anyway, so maybe that's how you could say it's not devalued, but just the pure randomness of it. Like a free team tournament means fuck all.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I feel like 3 teams is too many is like too few to be in a tournament, and it feels like there should be just 2, and you play it as like a one-off friendly thing, or you've got to
Yeah.
have 4. 3 just feels totally wrong.
Definitely.
I mean, I don't want to start adding more teams into this because I think it's a terrible idea, but Brazil have won it, and we move on to year 4, basically.
Oh, so Brazil, they're the reigning champions. They love a money spinner more than everyone, even more than England. But after 1 year and 1 win, they can't be asked, and they do not come back to defend their trophy. Now
Belt in the bin.
we said we said earlier that a different South American team would be invited each time. Did they not anticipate that a South American team might win over England and Scotland, and therefore you may be booting the winners of the tournament out of the tournament to replace them with another random team from the same continent?
Well, it's quite hard to see whether the FAs thought that it would be if Brazil would come back every year, like this would be a real date in their calendar of like, yes, we go and play the Rous Cup. Can't wait to go play England, Scotland, or it was just a deal that they kind of did with their kind of overall association in South America. So it's not really told. I think they were just like, well, let's just get Brazil in and we'll see what happens later on. But I think they just thought, right, so it's going to be a South American team. Let's get Brazil. Okay, they don't want to come back anymore. Well, fine, didn't want you anyway. Ruined the trophy. And it's just quite hard to figure out because why South America as well? Why not another team in Europe?
We need to actually do like a journalistic episode of this show and get the people responsible on and hold them to account.
Hold them to account, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Brazil aren't turning up. We know there's another South American team coming. My mind thinks back to a team we've mentioned earlier on, Uruguay, or even another team we mentioned earlier on, Argentina. Wouldn't that be good?
Well, exactly. Yeah, Argentina, reigning world champions, have a beef with England after only exiting a year previously. Scotland, big beef with Uruguay from their own exit. You think, yeah, they're the ones to try and get in. And it was, of course, Colombia.
Yeah, Colombia, who England would have a beef with for one game. That is 40 or 30 years later under Gareth Southgate.
Yeah, would have
I
been.
can't do
Absolutely,
maths.
yeah.
I think it's 30, maybe 40. Let's
One
say
of the two.
40.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
Colombia are in.
Colombia, and it's Colombia also who were supposed to host the 86 World Cup too.
You know what would have been good? A good way of doing this. England and Scotland both go to Brazil, and the tournament just takes place out there. You wait for us, like you're on our turf, and you've got to wait for us to play you guys.
Is that not a bit needy? Like, yeah, we can't come over. Oh, we'll come to you.
Yeah, the concern shouldn't be looking a bit needy. It should just be trying to make this thing interesting.
I do think they're quite past being needy, if I'm honest, as well.
Yeah,
Like
they
you're
are
already
needy.
asking Brazil to step in and make your competition. It's been going for 2 years relevant.
They definitely are needy. I just mean neutrally. I think that would have made it more interesting than carrying on as you were with the winners never coming back and a new random South American team to take their place. But
I know.
anyway,
It doesn't look good on the Wikipedia page. I'll tell you that. It goes Scotland, England, Brazil. It doesn't look good at all. But yeah, it's Colombia. We've got to stick with them. They're obviously stripped of the 86 World Cup for economical and drug reasons, let's say. So
yeah,
we're
well,
gonna
they give us a lot to talk about, shall we say?
oh yeah, they come with baggage.
Big time. Scotland versus Colombia is where we start for the Rous Cup 4. This is May 1988. Jim Leighton in goal, Richard Gough, Steve Nicol, Roy Aitken, and Alex McLeish in defence. Willie Miller, Kevin Gallagher, Paul McStay, Ali McCoist. In the mid, we have Murdo McLeod and Mo Johnson. I think that's twice I've butchered Paul Murdo's name.
I think I've just done it from whatever the squad numbers are as well. So that's probably not even the correct, like where they were on the pitch. Who knows? I've just put the numbers because you just go, who cares? It's just names now by this point. But one quiz question for you, Jord.
Yeah.
One of those players at Scotland played for Borussia Dortmund.
Played for Borussia McDortmund, I said. Jesus
Dortmund.
Christ.
Can you tell me which one played for Borussia Dortmund?
Was it Steve Nicol?
It was Murdo McLeod.
Bloody hell, I should have gone for the one with the coolest name.
I did
Never heard
not
of old
realise that
Murdo.
when I was kind of looking through, just going, oh yeah, played for Borussia Dortmund. What? Like not Dortmund 2 or anything like that.
God, he looks bloody tough, doesn't he? He's got a hard face.
Hard face for the yellow wall.
Yeah. 100 games at Borussia, in between 300 for Celtic and 78 for Hibs. Just a lovely little detour.
Good little career, wasn't it? And it's also a first Rouse appearance, but not a first pod appearance for one Kevin Gallagher as well, who actually had a stinker in the first game of the Euro 2000 playoffs we covered early back in the day.
It doesn't feel like a player from this era should be playing in the Euro 2000 playoffs.
I think Tony Adams survives as well, who
he
we've
does.
mentioned.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm amazed Peter Shilton's not turned up then as well, with the amount of fucking times we've seen him.
Give us a bit of a Colombia squad. I don't even know what a run through.
Yeah, I'll just kind of highlight some of the names that really stood out for me, really, because I don't think them again a lot. I will just be saying words elsewise, but amazingly, there's more recognizable names here than there is in the Brazil team, which is just crazy when you think of like a Brazil and a Colombia. But very different reasons why. So first was captain Carlos Valderrama, one of the most recognizable footballers of the 90s, predominantly because he looked like a caricature of a player from the 70s with his big blonde perm. Valderrama was the reigning South American Footballer of the Year and would go on to win it again in 1993.
That's big. Fair play. A good name to be discussing.
Yeah. Valderrama also well known even to European audiences in the 90s, not just because of his looks, but also for what he did on the pitch. He played 111 times for his country and is said to be one of the all-time high international assist makers as well.
Welcome to the pod, Carlos Valderrama. God, that hair it really is something else, isn't it?
He looks stunning in every photo you ever see of him. It doesn't matter if it's like modern day Valderrama or back in the day. He just looks different grades of brilliant.
Very true. Very true. Any other bit? Well, Rene Higuita, their goalkeeper, and now that name's highlighted, and that's because of Scorpion Kick fame. Surely,
Absolutely.
I've got that right, haven't I?
Yeah, you absolutely have. Yeah, Rene Higuita as well. Just not many more fun things that have ever happened in football than the birth of Rene Higuita. If, like me, you were a big fan of downloading 27-second video clips off the internet in the 2000s, you'll have come across Rene at some point.
Definitely.
Yeah, Higuita was nicknamed El Loco, the Madman, for his behaviour on the pitch and was one of the early sweeper keepers we'd think of today, taking loads of risks and running through the middle of the pitch with the ball as well past players. As you mentioned, his scorpion kick was one of his inventions that he unleashed on England in a friendly in the 90s. Yeah, and Higuita was also known for his goal scoring a total of 41 goals in his career, 11 in one season at one point, as well as scoring 3 times for Colombia. His most famous goal came while playing for Athletic Nacional in the Copa Libertadores semi-final in 1995. Higuita steps up, takes a free kick, and creates one of the greatest sounds in football history.
Queda como arquero custodiando el arco de Nacional Pachito Foronda.
Vamos a ayudar a René como siempre con mucha energía. Todos concentrados.
That is some serious passion from the crowd there. I mean, it sounds like you know those films or TV shows where you're like it's just mad. Like I'm thinking the first episode of The Last of Us. I mean, like fuck it, there's a plane crash in the sky and everything's happening, or like basically Mad Max Fury Road, like all the way through. Like there's
Yeah.
buses on fire and dragons and fucking elephants.
Why has he got a
fighting.
guitar?
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like that. I thought I could hear a baby crying throughout it, but I think it was just the commentator.
It's so mad, is it? What's even more amazing about the commentary, like you say, do you feel like there's something wrong with the audio? But slowly you start to see that it's actually the commentator who's just screaming, and it's at such a high pitch. When he finally starts coming down, you can just about make out the word goal that he's just elongating.
Was that a big? I mean, is that a big? Was it just that he scored? It looks like it must have been the most important goal ever scored in that legal cup or whatever it is.
So Copa Libertadores is essentially the South American Champions League, and it was a semi-final. I think it was the first leg of semi-final. I think it was pretty late on that he scored that as well, and it's just like, fuck, it's just insane. The commentary is amazing. The actual he is mobbed as well, and in the stands, it feels like the people, like the crowd, are on the pitch. Like it's not like it's just crazy. It's just amazing. Just one of my favorite noises ever.
Some of the YouTube comments are funny as well. It's like, by the sounds of it, that goal saved the entire universe from destruction. The other name on the Colombia team that is kind of familiar is Andres Escobar. Nick, I'll give it over to you to give us the lowdown on him.
Yeah, absolutely. Escobar plays one of his first international games in this tie, actually, and goes on to be a really well-established international for Colombia, playing for his country 51 times. He also came through at Athletic Nacional in 1986 and would help Nacional win the Copa Libertadores in his spell there as well. Escobar left in 1989 to play in Switzerland, where he played 8 games for young boys before returning to Nacional in 1990. So a real home bird, really.
Yeah, Colombia to Switzerland, the less
And
trodden
back
path.
again.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, such a weird one, really. I don't really know the story behind that, but clearly 8 games and just thought, nah, I miss it too much in Colombia. Then prior to going to the 1994 World Cup with Colombia, Escobar was rumored to be moving to AC Milan, but unfortunately never makes it. He is the player who scores the own goal for USA in the tournament, an act which will later get him killed in a nightclub in Nevada following Colombia's exit.
Jesus. So that goal must have been pretty important in sealing Colombia's fate then.
Yeah, they'd lost their opening game at the World Cup, and they were really seen as one of the favourites. And this was kind of the era of Tino Asprilla had broken through by this point as well. You'd still got Valderrama there, Higuita was still there too, and they were really fancied. I think they'd won something like 5-0 in Argentina as well to qualify for the tournament. So they were really just taking all before them. And then they'd lost their opening game, and in the second game, Escobar scored an own goal, and they ended up losing 2-1 in that game. And it all just kind of obviously goes more to more wrong, really. Escobar was in a car when 3 men approached him, started to argue with him, and he was shot 6 times. There are many links between this murder and the Colombian drug cartel. It's believed one of the men who killed him had bet money on Colombia winning the USA game, which they didn't do, partly down to his own goal. The man believed to be his killer was sentenced to 43 years in prison and served only 11.
Jesus. There's I think there's a documentary about that. Nothing much to say really in terms of it's insane, but
Yeah.
we celebrated the passion of Colombian football fans when it was presented in a positive light, and this is just the opposite side of that. Whether you could say this is the passion of football fans, or whether it's the different reasons like perhaps match fixing, money riding on it, just personal, being a dickhead, what have you.
Yeah.
The second death of this Rous Cup journey. We don't
I
usually
know,
have them.
yeah. I know, yeah. It obviously comes like in 1994, we're in 88 at the moment, so it comes afterwards, but it's weird watching because we watch him in an England game as well. And it's just weird seeing that, God, he's such a famous player, yet so few people probably properly know the story or know his name.
Yeah. Aside from it's crazy. But that's the two teams then. Let's get into the game.
Yeah, it's really good that we took so long and hyping up the game because the game between Scotland and Colombia ends 0-0 and there are no YouTube highlights of it, so everyone wins now.
Yay. The two teams would meet again in a friendly just prior to France 98, which was a 2-2 draw. I know this because I watched a minute of highlights of that in Colombian commentary before realizing I was a decade too early, which is
What
good.
gave it away?
Carlos Valderrama looked older than I thought he should, and it was Scotland were wearing a kit very similar to the Euro 2000 playoff, and
Right,
my
okay.
previous race experience for kits haven't come along that much in that time.
Where's the weird shorts?
Maybe they're going to turn up here because it's match 2 of the Rous Cup 4, Rous Cup with a Vengeance, England versus Scotland. Wembley Stadium this time, 21st of May, 1988. England's team, much of the same, really. You've still got Beardsley, you've still got Lineker, you've still got Shilton. Obviously, Adams has stayed there. Dave Watson's in instead of Butcher. Midfield, a bit different. Neil Webb, Trevor Stephen. Then you got Brian Robson and John Barnes. I think Gary Stevens, Dave Watson, Neil Webb, Trevor Stephen, they're kind of your new boys.
Yeah, you got some new names in there still, haven't you? And like I say, it's a year on from when we've last just seen them as well, winning going for that tournament with Brazil as well. Scotland, by this point, I've just gone very Scotland blind. I can't, the team was there again. It looked pretty much the same. I just couldn't put my eyes over it anymore. I feel like Richard Gough still knocking around, having scored the winner in the first Rous Cup, which feels about 50 years ago. I can't even look at the blur that is Alex McLeish anymore, whose like skin is so white, it's actually brighter than his ginger hair.
Yeah, Scotland blindness is a real thing, folks. Yeah, you wanted to give a shout out to one of the YouTubers who've made this possible that we can do this project.
Yeah. Thank you as ever to the wonderful Duck Jive One, who posts so many England v Scotland games. I feel like he must be the owner of like Lost Doctor Who and like World of Sport episodes. Just the absolute master of his period here. Like so many full games. If you ever wanted to just go and just fucking sit and watch one with like 19 cans on a Saturday afternoon. But my word, he is just the king of old football from this era. Just the archive he has is amazing.
We get a bit of a glamour for the tie. England are introduced to Her Royal Highness, according to commentary. But this is not. I associate that with old Queen Elizabeth II. I know that there's correct terms you have to call members of the royal family, and you have to stick to it. But I can't make out who this woman is. Is she
I've got
fraud?
Absolutely the fake family. I mean, they can just do whatever. I mean, I've got not one fathom of who this is because the Queen is not turning up for this shit.
No. There's a man who looks like Phil Collins stood next to her, but she meets the referee after meeting the players, and it's the same ref, just worthy of note, that who sent off the Uruguayan player in the first meet of the Scotland World Cup game. Interesting little bit of trivia. I mean, Scotland can't have any beef with him, unless they were like, you should have sent more off.
Yeah, possibly. It's just weird. Like we've got this like small world of international football still, haven't we? Of just like, oh, that's the guy who did this and this is as well, and he looks like Bob Hoskins playing Super Mario, which he actually did. So,
so it's not just an imagined mashup joke. That one, it's based in fact.
it is actual fact. Yes.
Another fact. Takes just 12 minutes for England to score in this game. A throw-in from Gary Stevens is dummied from Peter Beardsley. Barnes plays it round the corner back to Beardsley, who's made a little run. He jinks past a flying tackle to leave himself one-on-one with Leighton, and he dinks it over him. Let's have a listen.
Beardsley. Dummy. Beardsley gets it back from Barnes. Beardsley again! England ahead! A smile of delight from the little Liverpool player. And, last week we scored from an almost identical situation there. But it was disallowed because the whistle pulled him back and in the cup final Liverpool-Wimbledon. But here he is again, this time just chipping it over on the onrushing Jim Leighton, and England go into the lead.
I thought that was a lovely goal to watch. Hopefully it was as good to listen to. The dummy, the pace, the dink, brilliant.
Brilliant. Is this the earliest dink we've seen?
As in, like, the
in the
keepers...
timeline.
I'm with you.
I can't think of another dink.
Well, didn't the Scottish, what's his name? Scotland blind, against Gordon Banks when he tried to dink him in 67?
Oh, Dennis Law. Yeah,
Dennis Law. But it's not a dink goal. Like,
it's not a
maybe
successful
more of a chip.
dink. I'm looking for a successful little dink. It's one of those where the camera is like straight behind where the ball moves directly in the camera line. So it's quite hard with depth perception in terms of how deep has that gone. Like you can't. It looks like it's just like jumped over the head, but actually it's already in the back of the net, so it's quite hard to see. And yeah, it was a lovely goal, as you say. And Beardsley almost gets a second as well, as Lineker's shot is parried by Leighton. It falls to Beardsley, but Leighton smothers it well. Poor Jim Leighton. He doesn't have a stellar time around this period. He ends up moving to Man United and falling out with Ferguson really badly, and actually gets left out of the 1990 FA Cup final replay for another goalkeeper as well. So they fall out quite a bit. It's not a good period for him.
I've heard of that one. In the second half, following some excellent weaving from Peter Beardsley, Kenny Sampson produces a wonderful chip that Leighton tips just round the corner, over, whatever you want to call it. He saves it basically. The camera cuts to Sanson, and yeah, he's got a lovely little mustache.
But first time I've ever seen his face. He's been in a lot of these games. I've just never seen his face, and he's got a little tash. And the only way I can describe it is disgraced train conductor.
Yeah, pretty much spot on. I'm wondering if you're thinking of any train conductor in particular there. Not naming any names.
No.
See, that's how you get extra coverage for the show, Nick. Just allude to something that you have no proof of, but that nobody can disprove either. Peter Shilton, you had a little bit of a mishap, didn't you? You thought Peter Shilton had aged drastically.
Yeah, Brian Moore at one point starts introducing like something. One of the players like Peter Shilton here at 90. And I went, "What? He's 90?" And it's like, "Oh, at 90 caps." I was like, "Okay, fucking." I was like, "Jesus, he's already at 90." But again, feels like we've seen so much of him.
Yeah. We've seen enough of this game, certainly. England stormed to the top of the race table after this win and now only need a draw to seal the trophy. The England stats site tell us that The Guardian wrote a report on this match titled Giants Must Beware of Beanstalks. So make of that what you will.
Oh, well done. Very
Cryptic.
thought-provoking.
Yeah, cryptic match report. The next one's an interesting one. The next game we're going to look at, the Rous Cup 4, match 3. England versus Colombia, the South American boys on the block. England's team is Peter Shilton, Viv Anderson, Mark Wright, Tony Adams, and Kenny Sampson. Disgraced train conductor Kenny Sampson. Chris Waddle, Steve McMahon,
Steve McMahon,
not Steve McManaman.
not Manaman.
Okay.
Too early.
Yeah, I thought so. Brian Robson, John Barnes, Peter Beardsley, and Gary Lineker. So, similar to last time, really.
Yeah, Waddle kind of brought back in for a bit of flair. Viv Anderson and Mark Wright also in as well. And I thought we were out of the Glenn Hoddle era as well, slipped away to be kind of appreciated elsewhere. However, we do get a Glenn Hoddle appearance off the bench in this game as well, alongside his AS Monaco teammate, Mark Haitley. Two misunderstood geniuses popping up off the bench.
There you go. The big boys all get a run out for Colombia. Talking Higuita, we're talking Valderrama, Escobar. The only change is the introduction of Arango. And I tell you what, there's some. I don't know how much we'll touch on them, but there's a few names that you hear quite often on these highlights because, say, Colombia have a lot of the ball. We'll get to it though. England are wearing their away kit at Wembley for this. Anything to just add a bit of spice, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Oh,
It's all gone a
role
bit. It's all gone a bit the 100,
Yeah.
hasn't it? Just kind of like, don't stop thinking about anything for a second. Just carry on. We've got to just have music. We've got to have kits. We've got to have flashing lights.
I've never seen this kit either. I wonder if it was specially made for the Rous Cup. Do you have any thoughts on this red number?
Like you, it's kind of new, and I'm not used to it. It's kind of got one of those, like a granddad shirt.
Yeah, yeah.
One of those. Like, I'm not against it. I just don't really know how to feel. It's a bit too fresh in my mind.
Yeah, there's a little white patch on one arm and a little blue patch on the other. So you've got red, white, and blue.
Yeah, a little button collar, I don't mind as well. Like, I think it's nice. It's just one of those that you never see produced for anything. Like, you don't see any reproductions of this on any websites, do you?
No, no, that's true. Well, it's just it's this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Peter Shilton dressed in grey as well.
Yeah, it looks awful. Looks like a spacesuit from Red Dwarf or something. He just looks awful.
The game gets underway. The highlights get underway, I should say, with more Beardsley action. I mean, low key, he's been the star of this episode, at least, of is this England.
I don't even think that's low key. I think he's the person that we're just drawn to so much. We're just like, fuck, he's not been shit.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, star of the show so far. He gets onto an early chance from a Lineker cross. That doesn't go in. England would take the lead, though, from what I'm going to presume is their next chance. It was certainly the next chance on the highlight reel through a lovely Gary Lineker header, according to Motson on commentary. Is it Motson?
think it is, yeah.
Think so. It happened so quickly. Colombia didn't know what hit them.
Apparently.
Apparently, yeah. Is a crossing from Chris Waddle, who you know at the outset of this show was fighting with England fans, or at least recovering from that fight. But now
That's
he's
what
whopping in assists.
Yeah, that's what Keegan says anyway. Yeah, Chris Waddle on the right puts in such a low energy cross, like the lowest you've ever seen. Like a teenager just being told to help mom load the dishwasher after dinner. Like he just barely even like scrapes the ball off the ground to get it there. But it's like it's a brilliant cross, but his arms are just down by his sides, just like, do I have to?
Despite the first chance going to England and then the first goal going to England, it becomes quite clear from watching these highlights that Colombia are just a much more exciting side to watch. There's little flicks, there's little tricks, there's loads of all of that, and they keep the ball really well as well for my money.
Yeah, they're brilliant, really, in this game from what you've seen of it too. And during the first half, there is an absolute piss take of a back heel from a Colombian as well. The ball kind of comes towards him and brings it down. He controls the ball out of the sky onto his chest, and kind of as the ball is falling to the floor, he moves his body in front of the ball with his kind of the ball behind him and backheels it into Valderrama, who might as well be on another pitch. He's in so much space. It's just amazing.
Yeah. With each sort of passing highlight, Colombia do something that you feel like you haven't seen before. I mean, you might see it every week in the Prem now, but we haven't been watching the Premier League. We've been watching England and Scotland, the lost tapes. So this is a revelation to see a bit of skill. I mean, Christ, after all this time. Raiding, I think, or Reading, Valderrama and Arango genuinely look shit hot.
Yeah.
Um, in the second half, but Colombia's still yet to score. In the second half highlights, we see some madness from Higuita, not like scoring an absolute banging free kick or a scorpion kick save, but this one was kind of unsettling. So he comes out to kind of chase a ball near the corner flag, but not quite by the byline, just close to going out for a throw in, maybe.
Mm.
And yeah, he comes out, controls it, gets chased down by an England player. He kind of turns that England player twice, but then he ends up running towards his own penalty box as a result of like the double turn. He's kind of being chased by a couple of England players at this point. And then when he's in his penalty area, he just dives on it to pick it up. So that's not a pass back, but that must be illegal.
That's what I thought, because he can just go out of the area. It feels double illegal of just like having the cheek to get the ball, then you run it back into his area and pick it up. It's like, well, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Like again, there's no wonder that stupid rule like disappeared, especially with like keepers just being able to do this now. Like Higuita's invented a new thing.
Yeah. Despite all the flicks and tricks and the skill, the Colombia goal does come eventually, and it comes from a header off a corner, and it's Andres Escobar. Nothing really too flashy. It is a really good header. Hits off the underside of the bar and drops in. Colombian players and supporters are all going wild, as you'd expect. England do jump back into action after this and make some chances. Just having a bit more of a level head on things. I think England have actually after this goal, they make some chances that mean they have overall had the better chances, but Colombia just way more entertaining to watch. And like, you think
Definitely.
that's a bit more of a sustainable plan. They will, they have less to go than England.
Yeah, definitely. And they play really well in the game, but at the end of the day, it ends 1-0, and England win their second Rous Cup due to their win over Scotland and a draw with the visitors today as well.
Visitors, that's just what they should be called. Yeah, we've seen post victory Rose Cup presentations go a bit, astray. It's not really what you want to see, and it happens again with this. I thought this was quite interesting. England players, as you mentioned earlier, shirt swapping's a big thing. They go straight into swapping shirts with the Colombia players. Probably a little show of respect as in to say, you guys gave us a bloody good game and you're brilliant.
Mm.
Well done. Bobby Robson starts shouting really loudly at the England players and he looks fuming while Shilton just kind of hobbles around by him like a little teacher's pet. There's just something about this trophy presentation that rubs people up the wrong way. But yeah, Motson says that Robson doesn't want to see them collecting the trophy looking tatty, i.e., wearing Colombia shirts. He also says, as a traditionalist, I agree with him. Interesting. I'm going to go into the post-match interview with Robson, and he goes in on this shirt swapping disgrace. He says it's one of those little things. One of those little things before unleashing. It's one of those little things. I don't like England players to swap England shirts on the pitch, and I don't like England players going to pick up a medal in a foreign shirt. It's as simple as that. You keep your own shirt on and you exchange it in the dressing room. They know the procedure. They have to stick to it.
I mean, you're not really going to see many England players collecting a lot of medals in general. Maybe just get over it. It's fine.
Yeah. Uh, he does also praise the Colombian team, saying England's players got an exercise tonight. I think he may have meant lesson. But he was genuinely infused about the way Colombia played. He was like, you just don't get that in England. He was saying it is like flicks and the tricks and the passing and the little triangles. You don't get that in England.
It's amazing because he's kind of pining back for his like club career days almost, and you can
Yeah.
see there he's got a little glint in his eye of like, fuck, I'd love to go and do that because he goes on to manage loads of European clubs like his Barcelona, PSV, Porto. He goes all over the place, and
Yeah.
he just clearly has just got that getting a bit bored of it, getting a bit bored of this. It looks pretty good everywhere else.
That's the end of the Rous Cup for 1988. Just 3 goals scored across the is that across the whole tournament?
Yeah, across 3 games with 3 goals scored. So it's just this is all getting very end of the home championships again, isn't it? It's all getting bad. But amazingly, against all the odds, they're renewed for another year.
Wow, bloody Nora. So who is it going to be this? Is it the comeback of Brazil, do we think?
Yeah, we're gonna roll the Rouse Cup tombola and find out which South American team has drawn the short straw and needs to come over to fulfill their legal commitment to England. It feels a bit like when a movie studio has like the rights to a films that they've got to keep on, but to do that they need to make a film. Like it's all got a bit Fantastic Four because apparently I think it was in the 90s. There was supposed to be a Fantastic Four film that was made. Like they needed to make it, else the rights would lapse back to Marvel. So they literally made a film and it was never released, but they
Also
legally
just
had
it.
made the film.
Oh, that's interesting. Anyway, who's going to make this the Fantastic Free this time?
Well, England had requested Argentina play in this tournament 3 years on from the hand of God. Argentina received the invite but declined due to alleged fixture congestion in their own country around this period.
Alleged.
I know, yeah. The British government had disapproved of the invitation being sent to Argentina due to the Falkland Wars back in 1982. But it feels like a good opportunity again to like mend some bridges, or in reality, the opportunity to try and score a quick roll up on Argentina and proclaim England the real world champions.
You're goddamn right. Yeah. I hope that, but they didn't take up the offer. Oh, of course.
No,
Yeah. How
no,
could
no.
you?
Instead, Argentina, Colombia, and Brazil. Instead of all that, within the Rouse Cup community, Chile turn up to do the to do the business for South America.
Dear God. Dear
No
God.
disrespect to Chile, but fucking hell.
Yeah, they're one of the ones you forget if you're like, if this is pointless. I think they'd be a good response.
You would
So
get some people just going, they're not even in South America. Like you have to like imagine what the FA got that email of like, they're not even from there.
get that bloody, I can't even think of the word, that globe, that
Get the
spinning
globe out.
globe. Get the globe out.
Just
Do
see
they,
hear him up. Well, bugger me.
do they have some big names anyway?
No,
Like no
no,
Valderomas of their own.
no, we'll get out of the way because there's absolutely, there is nothing to talk about with this Chile team, unfortunately. I tried to look into it a little bit, but I've got nothing to say about them. Not a single player I recognise. And I wasn't the only one as the first game of the tournament between England and Chile drew under 16,000 people to Wembley. I feel we could do better than that.
Yeah, it was a record low, I think, and probably still is.
Yeah,
Uh,
and like I say, Chile are no good either at this point. Chile failed to qualify out of their Copa America group on goal difference as well, so they're not even big dogs over there. I think they've just drawn the short straw.
Let's look at how the Rous Cup goes with them on board. Then maybe they can take it back to South America. They start against England at Wembley. By this time, we got Paul Gascoigne in the starting 11, as well as John Fashanu. Interesting.
Yeah, John Fashanu. What's John Fashanu doing here? Like, I didn't think these were the games where John Fashanu just accidentally played for England. Like, this is just ridiculous, really. This must be the earliest edition of players not giving one single fuck about this game. Like, where is everybody else? This can't have been like the dearth of talent.
No. Good to see Gascoigne getting stuck in though.
It is, yeah, it is. The one thing that you would say though about this game, the reason some players are missing is because they weren't allowed to pick any Arsenal or Liverpool players because the season had been extended due to the Hillsborough disaster for Arsenal and Liverpool's last fixture of the season. It just so happens that last fixture of the season was a title decider between Arsenal and Liverpool, where Arsenal won 2-0 at Anfield in the last minute to win the league. So kind of that gave, just the biggest dramatic ending to a season ever, really.
Yeah.
But they, those players were missing due to that.
They were meant to be at the Rous Cup against Chile.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Where's your priorities? Is there much to talk about in this game? I think the listeners can also sense that this Rous Cup maybe isn't going to be the pivotal moment where it all turns and it really clicks. Feels like a bit of a dud one.
I know, yeah, the Dud Cup. I know, yeah, it's not a great game whatsoever. England are in all white, which I hate. That is not a good look at all. It's got big Euro 2016 vibes for me. Red socks as well. I just don't like it at all. Also,
I would argue that Red Sox is not all white.
yeah, but you know what I mean. It's
Yeah,
like
no.
white shorts, white shirt, red socks. It looks awful. And you can see around Wembley that it's so empty. Like, I didn't know that the seat colours were that colour.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was described as a graveyard atmosphere, which is nice.
Yeah, not good at all. Also, Chris Waddle has now got his awful mullet. Like, that mullet is now front and center, and it's such a bad game. Even the person who's like done the highlights thinks this is crap. There's a highlight in the second half where John Fashanu receives the ball, like dribbles towards the goal. You can see his foot goes to the ball to have a shot, and then they just cut away. Like, they just could not even be bothered to show that full highlight. They were like, "Nah, he doesn't score this. Forget it. Let's move on."
That's the second example of something like that in the Rous Cup in the last episode. They cut short the one of the England-Scotland games.
I know.
How does this one end up then? What have we got? A draw, a win?
It ends 0-0. So England and Chile have come over and they've done a number.
Fucking
They've done a number on
hell.
England, and it's 0-0 this game. Absolutely crap. But what it does do, it sets up the second game to be pivotal. Really, it's Scotland and England.
Yay, a pivotal Scotland. It's all coming full circle now. I don't mind that
This was
at all.
worth it.
Yeah. Tony Cottee and John Fashanu starting up front. Nobody is answering the call for this game, are they?
I mean, Tony Cottee, you are taking the piss now. Is this the worst front two ever for England?
It could very much. Tony Cottee wasn't a bad player, was he?
He was fine, but I just think Tony Cottee, I always get him mixed up with Andy Townsend for some reason. I think they've got that similar kind of
Face.
like way face and way of speaking about them. They were around in the same period. But I mean, Tony Cottee was not an England international. I mean, this would be John Fashionu's last cap as well as Tony Cottee's.
Yeah, well, there you go. At least they got to play in this pivotal Rous Cup game. Pivotal in the sense that Scotland can win and England can win, but Chile can't.
Well, it's only the second game of the tournament so far, so it's pivotal for the fact that England could get over their hump from what happened with Chile. But if Scotland win, they've really only got to draw with Chile to kind of reclaim the cup again.
Okay, the game gets off to a great start, according to your notes. I mean, it could just be classed as a start, or even a bad start. I seem to be being a bit sarcastic.
It's a great start because Peter Shilton is wearing a Scotland kit, so That's brilliant to see. England brought the England goalkeeper's kit, but only the blue one. Scotland famously playing every home kit ever in blue.
Yeah.
So you're just thinking, like, again, what are you doing here? Even the kit man's not fucked now. Like, it's just ridiculous. And you know, England do all the pushing early on in this game as well. They are rewarded with a goal when Gary Stevens aims across for Chris Waddle's mullet with a bullet header, and he is off celebrating.
Mullet with a bullet, baby.
I know the mullet looks a lot better than in the previous game. It looks like this one looks like there's a lot more to it. But the
Yeah.
last one was just like, oh, I don't know if he had something done to it in between, but the last one was a proper like physio job. It was horrible.
Yeah. Scotland do have a chance to to get back into the game through Ali McCoist.
Yeah, the ball just kind of bobbles up and hits him as he's running he's running towards goal, and he just goes out for just for a goal kick. It's really weird seeing McCoy. He's been playing for Scotland for like over a year, and he still hasn't scored for Scotland. Like,
Yeah.
that's really strange for a guy who's like an illustrious goal scorer, especially at club level and a bit of a hero in Scotland, to see he really struggled early on.
I wasn't laughing at that. I was just laughing at the next note. I mean, yeah, fair play to McCoist. If I were laughing at him at that point, he would have proved me wrong over time, I'm sure. I love this line from Barry Davis that we've got in the notes next. Nick, do you want to give us this perfect bit of verbiage?
Yeah. Barry Davis says, it doesn't matter the level. If you know where the goal is and your name is Steve Bull.
And he's right. Let's have a listen.
Right in the corner. What a start. Scoring on his debut. The man from the 3rd Division and Wolves, although they're about to lead there, scores on his first appearance at senior level. Eye for goal again. No hesitation. Bang.
The cross in here, and as he goes up with McPherson, look, it hits his back, and he's already turning because he knows where it's going to drop, and he finishes superbly and really instinctive.
There is a Wolves watching there. There is a goal. And you know, if you know where the goal is and your name is Steve Bull, it doesn't matter.
You are sorted for life, aren't you? Yeah, Steve Bull on his debut off the bench comes on to it's a great goal from Bull and scores. Yeah, the ball's kind of just lumped up towards him, and he somehow controls it on his chest, bounces high in the air, and somehow in like a movement he just like ferrets it towards goal. It's quite hard to describe, but it's just like one of those proper like, yeah, lower league, just making it work for him, living off scraps. And there's a great from Davies as well in that
Yeah.
he just smashes it in. He would have been playing in the equivalent of League One now.
That's crazy, isn't it? But that's what I guess Davis means. It doesn't matter what league you're playing in if you know where the goal is and your name's Steve Bull.
Absolutely, yeah. And with that as well, with that Steve Bull goal, England win the game. And you know, another few points on the board for the Rouse boys.
Yeah, well, the last Rous points of all time, surely. Surely is that it?
Yeah, well, there's one game left in the group, which you'll all be glad to know about as well. We quickly move to that game. If Chile win by 3 goals, they will win the cup. How? I mean, just how does that work? It doesn't matter. Scotland beat them 2-0, finishing second to England, and England win the Rous Cup. And with that as well, the Rous Cup is dead. 1989 is the edition which was last recorded in history for the Rous Cup, and it was abolished, much like the home championships, due to lack of good games, teams wanting to play better opposition, poor attendances, and again, violence. There was ticket restrictions by the FA as well, as they were for the game up in Glasgow, where England fans were not given tickets. So if you were in the ground as an England fan, you'd bought your tickets from a Scottish person.
Abolished is the right word for it.
Just awful by the end of it. You've got Scotland and Chile playing out a game at Hampden in front of 9,006 people.
That's the end of it. What a dumb idea, and so badly executed as well.
What a dumb idea.
And that's the end. please tell me that this is the end of this journey. This Rous
Surprise!
Oh man. England and Scotland wouldn't play a game against each other until the 1996 European Championships at Wembley. The Rous Cup never resurrected. And so does that mean England are overall winners? They won it more than Scotland, didn't they? And Brazil.
Yeah, yeah, and Brazil. That's the thing. When I was first looking this up, you kind of go, "Oh, okay." Scotland won the first one, and then England won. Brazil, what's that doing in there?
Yeah, there
Like,
is an all-time table actually. We may as well quickly give that. So from the bottom up, Colombia, from the bottom up, Chile,
yeah,
1 point. That was Colombia got 2 points. Brazil got 3 points. Scotland 6 and England 10. Brazil, Colombia, and Chile played 1 game each. England and Scotland 5 games each over this time. The most appearances in the Rous Cup, the record is split between Chris Waddle, Roy Aitken, and Alex McLeish with 8 each.
it's a lot of McLeish and Aitken. The amount of times I saw that name pop up was just painful.
Gary Lineker, the most goals with 2.
Oh, that's the damning indictment right there. 2 goals as a top scorer across 5 tournaments.
Across 5 tournaments, I think you had a total of 15 goals scored altogether. The highest attendance was England versus Brazil, 92,000 in 1987. Lowest attendance, as you just mentioned at the end there, Scotland versus Chile in 1989, 9,006.
I mean, should they do it again?
I don't even know what it is.
I think it just got so lost, didn't it? By the
Yeah.
end, it was just like, why has this been renewed for another season? Like I said, like, why are you even bothering? If you're getting offered Chile, you just say no. You just go, no, we're just going to do England, Scotland then,
Yeah, and
and
that
we're
would
going
have
to do
been
it in
fine.
space.
With a bear in the middle of the pitch.
Yeah,
That's what they should have done. We said it, we called it. So after what feels like a very long time, and that is the most games in a quick succession we've covered in a pod, we are pretty much at the end. The only question is, was this England? I don't even know what this was. I'll step in first, I think,
yeah.
and I'll say no.
Okay.
I just don't think it was ever good enough to even be like bad England. Like there was just never any stakes or hope or interest in it.
It felt like that first year was kind of the highlight of it.
Oh yeah,
Like the first year when it all happened, but it feels like everyone moved on from it far too quickly. Like when it
Yeah.
got to it, England won the second one, and you can kind of go, all right, well, they were deserving it or anything like that, but England won it. They were interested, great, and then kind of as soon as they start to ascend, into the quarterfinal, become quite a serious team with good players around them, is that already when they're going? Don't know if we can do with this Scotland lot. Should we leave them behind as well? Which is kind of unfair. It's not that long ago that you've been really struggling and neck, and looking down at the other home nations.
Yeah.
It just I don't know. I think this is actually quite England. I think this is like the height of. We've seen at the start as well, like the amount of touring they were doing and going to these crazy places and money spinning and going just because they've been invited because they're England and all this. And you just think, you're playing this out. I don't know what for, but they just will insist on keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I say this quite often, Nick, but can you never put me through anything like this? Can we please like have some good football? Things we're
Well,
picking from England games.
or at least interesting football, isn't it? I think the next thing that we would probably do, there's an Australia game coming up soon, and it
Yeah.
comes in a really interesting period for England. Is the game I'm thinking of. I think that's one we want to do when we come back, when England in a couple of weeks do play Australia. So I think we'll probably be back for that, and I think that one is going to be more enjoyable just because you're going to be like, oh, I remember all this.
Yes, there's only 90 minutes. But
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
I can picture the game you're talking about. Well, we did it. We did it. That's our second Odyssey of the year done. I mean, we've focused so intensely on Steve McLaren and the Rous Cup this year. We need a treat at some point soon.
Yeah,
But,
I think we'll find some fun games to do before the end of the year. I think there's that Australia one, and there's a couple of other ones as well that we can get lined up. Maybe you pick one, and I'll pick one.
yeah. Well, Nick, I'd like to say thank you to you because this has been an intense labour of love. You've gone so deep on the subject.
Love is a complicated game, really.
Brilliant. But yeah, if anybody cares about the Rous Cup, this is your all-time document of it right there from an England perspective anyway. Peace. Peace, listener.
Please go in, Rouse.
Yeah. Sound. See you later.
Goodbye.